Hey, everybody. Welcome to this webinar with JetBrains. I'm your host, Nafil Islam. Joining me today is Mason Egger. Mason Egger is a developer advocate from DigitalOcean. Hey, Mason, how you doing?
Doing pretty well. How are you doing?
Good, good. So today, we're going to be talking about building your first Python Slackbot and also perhaps even deploying it.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
So, um, So today, again, this is a webinar by JetBrains. This is building your first Python Slackbot, and we're joined by Mason Egger. If you have any questions, there is a little chat window to the side of this video where you can ask your questions. Now, a question we always get asked all the time is the session being recorded? And the answer is yes, this session is being recorded. So yeah, without much further ado, Mason, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be building a Slack bot in Python. We're going to be building a relatively minimal one. Our bot is going to respond to flip a coin. So if we say, just flip a coin in a certain Slack channel, it's going to flip a coin for us and tell us heads or tails. This is a longer presentation of another bot that I've done in a tutorial, which is where we do a what I call a random bot, like kind of maybe like if you play Dungeons and Dragons, like like something that rolls dice and stuff. Today, we're gonna focus on flipping a coin. So one of the things about whenever you create a Slack bot, and especially when you want to test it, that makes it a little bit different than your typical application is it needs to actually be available to the public. I already see a question in the chat that says with Flask. Yes, our Slack bots, the way that a Slack bot works is you set up a web endpoint. All messages that come from your Slack channel are sent to this endpoint as they come through. Then the data is parsed by your endpoint. It decides on what action to make, and then it uses the Slack APIs to send the data back. So because we have to use Flask, or we don't have to use Flask, we could use any Python web framework. We could use Django, we could use Twisted, we could use Fast API. Today, for simplicity's sake, and because I like simple, we're going to use Flask. We actually have to develop on pretty much either on a remote server, or I would have to set up a firewall port forwarding rule in my home network to allow the Slack. I don't want to do that. Since I work at DigitalOcean, I can get droplets relatively easily, so I'm going to go ahead and get a droplet. So we already have our droplet set up, and I have a server. So this server, if I pull this over here, this is just my dev server that sits in San Francisco. It's got 2 gigabytes, 60 gig disk. There's its IP address. And I've got my dev account on it. I'm going to go ahead and make a Slackbot directory. So that way, whenever I use PyCharm to upload my files, I have a place to put them. So what we can do is we can use a really cool tool that I like about PyCharm, which is the deployment session. So we're actually going to go from deployment. Oops. There it is, deployment. We're going to go to configuration, and I'm going to create an sftp configuration. This is going to basically, every time I save, my files are going to be uploaded to my server, so that way I can test them. So I can still develop locally, have the niceties of the local debugger and having code highlight. I don't have to highlight on it, use a text editor on my server, but I can still do it here. So we're just going to call this my dev server. And what we're going to do next is I'm going to set up the root path for this. Actually, no, first I have to make an SSH configuration. So let's go ahead and make an SSH configuration. Let's get my host. I need to grab my IP address from here. And then we say root, or actually, no, my username is megger. It is a password. We test our connection. This is good. And we're good. We've got our SSH connection set up. So now every time I save, it's going to SFTP over. Cool. So someone asked in the chat, how do I get a droplet to work? So a droplet is just a DigitalOcean VM that is on that. So it was basically just a basic bare bones Ubuntu 2004 server. And all I did was install Python virtual environment. Like I installed the appropriate Python development tools to make sure that I have it. So Python 3-venv is the only package I needed to install on Ubuntu 2004. Okay, so from here, we're going to say the root path is going to be home, Egger, and it's going to be my Slackbot. So that's where we're going to put everything. I'm going to do my local path. Everything in my local path I want over, except for one thing. I don't want my virtual environment directory going over. One, this takes a very long time. Actually, I need to do this differently. I remembered from yesterday. So, come on. Oh, did I actually click? Did I click? I meant local path. I actually accidentally put deployment path. That's not what I wanted. So I want to exclude my vn because PyCharm on my current machine is running Windows. It would copy Windows binaries over, which don't do me any good on Linux. So we're going to exclude the VM directories. I'll just set up another virtual environment on my thing. We're going to map everything over. We're going to do our connection to there, and everything should be okay. So now from here, I right click on this. I go to deployment. I say upload to dev, and it says uploaded Pi. It just says that it's there. So if I come back over here on my Slackbot, my app.py is there and we're good to go. So we have a Flask app. Now, the only other thing that I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to pip freeze requirements. Sometimes we're going to try that again. Sometimes I can't spell that word. You think for a word that I type every day of my life, I'd get better at typing it. It's not the case. So we're just going to go ahead and get that there so we can pull our environment over. And we're just going to upload this one to dev. So usually I found that I have to click the upload to dev the first time, and then every time after that, it's been subsequent. So now that I have that, well, first let's change directories into the Slackbot. Cool.
So you have everything ready. You got your app.py,
Yeah.
you got your requirements.txt. Awesome.
Yeah.
So for everybody joining right now, what we did up to this point is just Mason opened up a new project. He created a Flask application, and then he uploaded to a DigitalOcean droplet, which is a server, essentially, right?
Yes.
That's managed for you by DigitalOcean. Okay,
yes.
Awesome.
It's a remote server, so that way we can actually run our Flask application on the public internet, so it will be accessible by Slack. Fun fact, if you do this with Discord, it's actually the exact opposite. If you're building a Discord bot, Discord can run on your local machine and reaches out to the Discord servers, whereas a Slack bot takes in data from like an actual running web app. I have like a whole workshop. Yeah.
But ideally, they're still, working with webhooks, right? So you're at the end of the day,
Yes.
you're still building an endpoint that Discord or Slack or Space or what have you is going to hit, right?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. It is pretty cool. Discord bots are asynchronous also, which is pretty fun. Yeah, they're fun.
They're cool. Okay.
They are. I enjoy building Discord bots. So I'm going to go ahead and create a virtual environment. So Python 3-m vn, and then I'm going to activate my virtual environment. Vn bin activate, and then I'm going to pip install -r requirements.txt. So, whoops. Now we have Flask running. So if I run Python app.py, it says it's running on port 8080. So if I take my, where's it at? Is it that one? I have so many windows. There. It's not going to work if I don't put the port in. If I take my server's IP address and I go to port 8080, I have Hello World. So we have a running Flask app. We made it thus far. We're doing pretty good. So now that we have all of that, let us do... There it is. I keep losing my icons this morning. Let's go ahead and build our Slackbot. Let's actually get into the Slacky parts of this. This was, we didn't come all this way just to do a Flask Hello World. So the next thing we're going to do is we actually need to install a handful of libraries. So there's two libraries that we need for Slack. We need the Slack client, which is the client that allows us to actually send messages and do things on the behalf of us. So that's the first one. The second library that we need is the Slack events API, which allows us to get events from our Slack server, from our Slack, and actually be able to decrypt them and use them. So we have to have both of these libraries. And I'm going to do a quick pip freeze again on requirements.txt. I'm going to upload it because I think since I'm not actually the one, there we go. Since I wasn't the one who actually triggered the save, I don't know if it was going to automatically upload or not. So now that we have our Slack ones ready, we can go ahead and start writing some Slack code. So we have our app Flask, and the first thing we're going to end up doing is we need to import some Slack stuff. So from Slack import, let's go ahead and do the web client. So the web client is basically the client that interacts with the API that performs whatever action that we want to perform with the Slack, with the web API. So if we just call it Slack web client, and then we say web client, and then what we would do here is we would provide a token. And what we're going to do with that is we do token.os.environ.get. I usually tend to always use environment variables for these. If we do end up getting to deploy this to app platform, it's a nice way of doing it, but it is telling us we don't have OS. So let's go ahead and import OS. We have that. So you may be asking, well, where does this token come from? Well, let's go ahead and actually, before we go any further, let's get this token and let's have it ready for us. So let's actually do the first part of building our Slack app in the Slack API, like in the actual Slack developer console. So when you build a Slack app, you actually have to register your app with the Slack API. You have to register it, you have to give it permissions, you have to get your tokens and all of these things. It's pretty typical of most automated bot workflows. So we're going to create an app, and I'm going to give it a name, and we're going to call it my PyCharm. We're going to call it my coin bot because it flips a coin. And I'm going to development this into my personal one called Gallifrey. So Gallifrey is my personal Slack that I use for developing bots. I also use it to get like RSS feeds for Python news and security vulnerabilities and all that stuff. So it's my personal little one. So we're going to go ahead and click create app. And now we have our basic Slack app. Now, we have to do a couple more things before. We need to give it some permissions. So a Slack app, when created, is created with default deny on everything. Like it has no permissions, it has no abilities, it can't do anything. So the first thing we need to do after creating our Slack bot is in basic information, we need to scroll down and we need to give it some permissions. So let's go ahead and give it a scope. We're going to say, we're going to give it add OAuth scope, and we're going to say give it chat right. So we're going to give our ability I also called it Boit. So that's what we're going to deal with today. Naviola's my typing is bad. So
hey, it's a Boit.
chat Boit.
You want to call it a Boit? Hey man, it's up to you.
It's chat Boit. Okay. Yep. These are the fun. This is the fun that we're going to have today. So once we've done that, we've given it the ability, and we should be good on that. Go back to basic information. I need to install my app to my workspace. So we go ahead and click install, and it says, hey, CoinBot Boit is requesting permission to access the Gallifrey Slack workspace. So what are we going to do? And it will tell us everything that it's going to do. So if you have a very advanced Slack bot, you will be able to see before you install it all of the things that it is able to do. So since this one's only doing a little bit, we're going to go ahead and allow it. And the cool thing is now is it gives us our the data that we need. So we have our client ID, we have our client secret, we have OAuth tokens here somewhere. Looks like they've moved some of this stuff on me. Also, I'm not used to looking at it this big. So
OAuth is the one word that I'm terrified of, Mason. I have to be honest.
It's an interesting one to say the least.
Interesting as in, hey, that's interesting, or interesting as in, may you live in interesting times.
We live in interesting times. Security is always a fun one. Oh, there it is. OAuth and permissions. I was like, you moved it. Like this is the token that I need, and they moved it. Normally it just came up and they've moved it on me. So I'm gonna go ahead and just copy this token. And with that token, I'm going to essentially, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and what did I call it in my PyCharm code? So it's called Slackbot token. So I'm just going to export it as Slackbot token equals paste. That way we have it ready for when we need it later. I'm also going to just create a quick little file here. Now, you would normally not create a file to hold your tokens. Where we say tokens.txt. This is not something you would want to upload to, say, GitHub or anything, but because I need it for the sake of I'm going to want to pick it up later, I'm going to store it in here. Don't upload these to GitHub. That's how you get your tokens leaked, and then people get cranky with you. So now if we go to my Slack channel, which is right here, and unfortunately I can't really zoom in with Slack. Hooray. It's a little bit small, but if you look over here, we have Coinbot. It is over here, and it does exist. So if I click on its info, I can see that I do have a bot that I have created that is living in my thing. The only thing we need to do now is we need to add this app to a channel, and I've created a channel specifically for this called PyCharm Webinar Bot. So if I come over here, it says Mason Egger joined PyCharm Webinar Bot along with Coinbot. So okay, so I'm looking at I'm going to really quickly go through the chat real quick and see if there's any interesting questions before I go on, because this is a really good stopping point. So someone says they're very lost, have no idea we needed a DigitalOcean server. So you don't need a DigitalOcean server to build a Slack bot. What you need is a public IP address that you can actually access. So if you're doing this at home and you don't want to spin up like a $5 droplet, I totally understand that. I'm using, I think, a $5 DigitalOcean droplet. You could do this by going to your router and creating what's known as a port forwarding rule. You would want to forward traffic from your router's public IP address through to your desktop. Now, in my opinion, that's a lot more complicated, especially with routers, than it is just to spin up a development service or a development server. Or if you have any sort of maybe university server or anything like that. But if you absolutely don't have the ability to use a DigitalOcean server, it can be done from home. I would say Google what's called port forwarding, and you're going to want to forward a certain port on your public router to your machine where you're hosting the Flask application. So DigitalOcean is not required to build a Slack bot. It's just making our life a little bit easier at this point. As always, this will be available after the stream. I do streams with DigitalOcean all the time. I get that question all the time. Will this be? Yeah. Good. Someone's asking about slash commands. So slash commands in Slack bots behave differently. They're installed, and I think you kind of do similar type of coding for it, but they are definitely not the exact same as what we're doing today. So today is a bot that listens and responds. If you actually want to do a slash command, I do believe there's a tutorial on DigitalOcean about them. But they are different. They behave differently, and they fundamentally the way you program them is slightly different, and it's not the same. So today's bot is like a listening bot.
So just another thing before I forget, Mason, you've written a lot of articles about building Slack bots and how they work. We will, of course, link them in this tutorial in the description of this video when this is over.
Yes. So I write some of the community tutorials at DigitalOcean. I've done a tutorial on building a Slack bot. This exact presentation is going to be in a tutorial, so you'll be able to read it up from down and be able to get it. Also, there will be an app on a tutorial on how to deploy a Flask application to DigitalOcean's app platform, which is our new platform as a service kind of thing. And those two will be shared with you either in the chat or afterwards. And they will basically everything that I'm going to cover today is covered in two articles. So if you want to be able to have that, you'll have the recording and the written article, which is how I like to do a lot of my stuff. So. Oh, someone says Slack deactivates API tokens you push to GitHub. Yes, there's a lot of automation around that. So even if you did push it, they would deactivate it. So that's good. It's good to know. We're getting really good at this, not allowing stuff to be pushed to GitHub anymore. Okay, so that's how we get the Slackbot token. We're going to have to come back to the API console a little bit later, but we've gotten our Slackbot created, we've gotten our token, and then we've installed our Slackbot there. So now the Slackbot is sitting there ready, but it doesn't have any it doesn't have any powers yet. It has no code. It's kind of like an empty shell. It's ready, but it has no programming. So let's go ahead and add that programming. So we have our Slack web client, which allows us to just interact with the Slack message. And then we're going to go ahead and delete hello world here. And we're going to need this if main. The next thing we need to create is kind of a constant called message block. And message block, so is a kind of, it's a template for us for how Slack sends messages. So Slack has it's not just sending text. Slack has a specific structure around how messages are sent via the client. So we have to tell it that the type, especially for our message, is section. So this is telling it this is a text section. A different type could be image or file. Section is specifically a text section. And then we have to tell it text. So what is the text of it? And it's another dictionary within it. And then we have to tell it the type. Like a type. MRKDWN for markdown. That's just how they chose to do it. So it's a markdown text, and then we'll say the actual text here is blank. And what we're going to do is once we've created the text we want to send, we're going to come and modify this message block and add the text into this later. And then this is what's going to get forwarded on to this is what's going to get forwarded on to the client. This is actually a really great comment in there. Can the bot be implemented as an AWS Lambda function? I'm pretty sure they could. This will obviously cause your bot to be a little bit slower because you may be dealing with cold start times on the bot. However, if you don't want to pay for a constantly uptime running bot and you only want to use it when you're needing it, then a Lambda function would probably be a great use of a Slack bot. I've never actually done it because DigitalOcean doesn't have serverless at the moment, so I've not really played around with it yet. Okay, then the last thing that we're going to use, or we're going to do, is we're going to say we're going to create the Slack events adapter, and this is one that we're going to create really quick, and then we're going to go and adapt. Can I spell ADAPTER? This is the one we're going to come back and go into the I cannot type and talk at the same time. We're going to create this, and then after we're done writing the code, we're going to go back into the Slack API to connect this. But we can't do that until we've written the code. There's actually no point for us to do it until we've written the code because it won't do anything there. Don't type and talk. Apparently, it's hard. Then we're going to just, we're going to do os.environ.get Slack events token, and we're going to use that later. We'll get that later. And then what we're going to do is we're going to provide the endpoint. So we're just going to call it Slack events. We could name this whatever, but this is going to be, so at our IP address port /Slack/events is where our event stream is going, where our event handler is going to live. And then we say, hey, this is the Flask app you want to do. So this kind of creates this kind of wraps all of this adds like a URL for our Flask app and then just sets up our Flask app to be ready. So we really don't have to write any more Flask code anymore. It's all set up now that we have the events handler ready for us. So that's all the Flask related code. And I have not imported it yet, so we have to import it. So
just one thing, Mason, just one thing. Go over to hang on a second. Go over to Slack events adapter. Just put your cursor on it.
Yeah.
Just put your and hit Alt Enter.
Now I have to find Alt Enter.
And then you just import, press enter.
Oh, ain't that neat? I learn new things every day.
Hey, I'm learning new things here too. It's like I thought the way you were going, we were going to have to create the endpoints and then somehow hook in the adapter somewhere. But nope. Here you just kind of have it wrap the app object, I guess. Yeah, the app object.
Yeah, the people who implemented the Slack team that implemented their SDKs did a very good job. I'm very happy with this. As a developer, this is a very fun API to work with. So I'm, the webhooks thing kind of, but just do it for me and I'll be happier with you. But awesome. So there we go. We have that, and now we only have really one method to write, and it's going to be def message payload. Now, these functions, these methods are a specific. Where's my pass here? So it goes away. Are a specific method for it. These are the type of events that are coming through. So there's a message event, there's an emoji event, there's a image event. So these are specified by Slack. So you'll have to look up in the Slack API which one you want to use, and we're basically overloading the method. So we're going to overload the method by coming here, and then we're going to actually no, I messed that up. We tell it that it's that by doing Slack events adapter.on message. We're calling it message. I'm sorry, I messed that up in my head. I mixed it up with
that's really awesome.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier, right?
Yeah, having a decorator just saying like, hey, if you get a message, this is what you do.
Exactly. Yeah, I mixed that up with the Discord bot because the Discord bot you actually have to override. It's like on message, on enter and stuff. But no, with Slack, you can tell I've been building a lot of bots lately. It's kind of fun. So you basically just put a decorator with message, and it says when you get a message event, then you run this function, which makes life so nice. So the first thing we're going to
do. Where are you using the client though? So you have this client, you have this adapter, but where's the client coming in?
We'll use the web client in the inside of this message. The web client is what's actually going to be it's going to be the call that posts the message.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's what calls the Slack API.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep, exactly. So the first thing we do is we do event equals payload dot get event and then empty thing there, because that's what the API tells us to do. There's a lot of times when I'm like, the API told me that's what we're going to do. And this is getting us all of the event information. So now this gives us the event data and from the payload. And now we can parse the data and get what we need out of it. So we'll look at the text. I want to see what was said. So we'll just say event.get text. So now I can see all of the text that was sent. For every message, by the way, remember, every single message that gets sent inside of your Slack, I think it's in your entire workspace, gets funneled into this. I don't think it's just on a per channel thing. I think it's on per workspace. They might have fixed that. So you could be dealing with a lot of data here. So we're going to get the text, and then we're just going to check if flip a coin in text.lower is available. So if we see flip a coin, I don't care what the case is. We're going to lower it there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to send a message that flips a coin and says heads or tails. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get the channel ID so we know where to send it. So channel ID equals event.get channel. And we have that. So now we have the channel, so we know where to send our message. And then I need to import random. So rand int equals, I'm going to try that new trick that Nafiel taught me, .rand int 0,1. And now he says if I hit alt, if I hover over it, I hit alt enter, and I import this name to random. That's so cool.
but you don't need to click it. You can just go up and down with your arrow and press enter.
Oh, okay. Well, I like clicking, so we can also press enter. So we're going to generate a random int, and this is, if the random int is 0, then we're going to say results equals heads. One must first put the string in quotation marks. Else, Indeed. We're going to call it results equals tails. Okay. And then what we're going to do lastly is we're going to say message equals, using the fancy F strings. Woo, the result is results. It took me a little bit of time to get used to F strings, but once I did, I love them. So
it's just, it's just muscle memory, right? You're used to hitting dot format, and then now it's a little bit different, but yeah.
It is. I do like the dot format one. So if we just do message block subtext, which sounds funny when you say it, equals message. So we're going to basically take the message block that we created up here. We're going to set the text to, that. We're going to set it to message. So whatever message we're going to send. And then we're just going to come down here and call it message to send, and we're going to create this, and then we have to say channel is the channel ID. Yes, that's the correct one. And then we say the blocks. So another part of how Slack sends messages is it sends it in blocks. You could have a text block within another text block, image block, text block. Like there's all different blocks, so it kind of brings them all together. Now the thing that I've made mistakes on many times is you have to remember that blocks is always plural. And whenever I was originally working out all this code, I kept just typing message block here, and it kept messing up because that's only one message block. This has to be wrapped as a list. Don't wrap it as a list. It's not that way. You could have more things in it if you were delivering multiple blocks. I may have spent more time than I should have figuring out my error here, so that's why I'm bringing it up. Whenever I trip and fall, I tend to let other people know that, hey, there's a trip hazard. And then the last thing we do, and this is where you were asking about the Slack web client, is we say Slack web client.chat underscore post message, and then we unpack it, message to send, and basically turn the thing into KWArgs, and that that is essentially. I'm going to minimize this so you can see the whole thing. That is essentially all there is to this to a bare bones Slack bot. There's so much you can do with it. I've seen such amazing bots built with chat ops kind of bots. But yeah, a single one that basically you get the event, you figure out what you want to say, and then you send it back to as a client. So let's test it. Do we have any questions? This is a great stopping point. Do we have any questions here? There's a typo on line 41. Do I see a typo on line 41? I don't see a typo. Do you see a typo on line 41? I don't see it. Well, if it's an error, we'll fix it later. Text equals message. So unless
we go back to message block, did we refer to it twice?
It's text.
Okay, I think we're okay.
I think we're good. And if not, we'll fix it. That's the great thing about coding. If there's one thing I don't like doing, it's when I do live coding. If I don't make at least one or two mistakes, then it wasn't really live coding. It was very well rehearsed.
Probably
coding.
Recorded.
Yeah,
exactly. It's a conspiracy theory.
Exactly. I make mistakes. It's fine. Like we all make mistakes. That's the point of being a developer. Cool. This is good. We've saved it. Let's go here. The next thing we need to do is we need to get our Slack events token. So we haven't done that yet. So we have to do a little bit more with the Slack API, which is right here. So part 6. We have to get our signing secret. So we go to, I believe it was let's go to basic information. Yes, so we have our signing secret, and this is the Slack events token. So we can show it. I'm going to just copy it real quick.
Mason, could you just go back to the code real quick?
Go back to the code real quick.
Remove the first equal sign in line. There you go.
Interesting that didn't throw an error.
Actually did. It was highlighting something over here, but I just couldn't see it. Thanks everybody in the chat for catching that.
Thanks. I missed that. Isn't it amazing how you can look at stuff and like you've been doing this for how long and it's just like glazed over. I think the bugs that get me the most now are the basic bugs because I always assume it's something complicated and then it's a typo. It's a trap I fall into every time. Thank you so much for letting us know. So we're going to go back to, that's not what I wanted. This is what I want. We're going to grab this signing secret. I'm going to put it in my tokens. So I'm just going to put that there just so I have it in case I need it later. But we're going to come here. And what do we actually call it? Let's go back and look at the... Nope, come back. We called it Slack events token. All caps with underscores in between. So let's go ahead and export Slack events token. And let's paste it. And we hit enter. So now we have those there. Let's cat app.py. Ooh, it didn't... Oh, I forgot to click auto upload. I'm so silly. So I need to come here and do, in my deployment, there's an automatic upload that will automatically upload. And then after the first time you upload it once, it always does it. So it's a good thing I did that cat. Otherwise, I've been wondering why I was getting hello world. Oh, but then, okay. It uploaded tokens.txt, but we'll get over that. So we cat it again. We're good. We've got the whole bot. So we have our Slack token. We need to go back to the web. But we do need to add a little bit more. We need to tell the bot that it needs to be able to listen to events. Because right now our bot can send messages, but we didn't give it the ability to listen to events. So when we turn this on, now it's going to say, hey, what's your request URL? Where are you listening to these events at? So what we have to do is we have to start our app. So if we do Python app.py, I have not installed pip install -r requirements.txt.
Exactly.
There we go. And now we go and do Python app.py. It's running at 8080. And the fun thing about this is so this should go away because there's nothing running there. But if we go to /Slack/events, these are not the Slack bots you are looking for. So that is, I love that because it tells me that yes, the bot is running. No, because it's not doing any, like, I don't think this does a GET request. I think it only takes posts. So I did a GET, and it, instead of just giving me a 404 and not letting me know that my thing isn't working, it gives me a fun, like, I know that I'm running, and I know that I'm running here. It's the little things in my life that make me happy.
They have a good sense of humor over there, don't they?
They do. So we take this API, this whole endpoint with 8080 Slack events, and we come here and we put it into this. And when it comes up verified, it says, hey, we are indeed getting messages here. So we're good. Now, there is a slight problem with this. Whenever you're running it in development, we are not running this across HTTPS. So I could, go in depth and like install certbot, get a domain name, do all of that. However, this is our testing environment. This is not really how we're going to deploy it. And I'm going to show you another way you could deploy it, where you could have done this through App Platform, where you automatically get HTTPS, and you would have been fine. So for now, I think for the sake of this, we're going to be good. So we need to add that in, and then we need to go to event subscriptions, and we need to subscribe to bot events. So we need to tell it what event do we actually want to listen to, and I want to listen to the channel, to messages on the channel. So when a message is posted on the channel, I want my bot to have the ability to understand that and read that. So I'm going to click on that, and now I have given it that ability to subscribe to bot events. So then we click Save Changes. I'm going to double check my notes. Yes, we click Save Changes. But now it's going to tell us, hey, you need to reinstall your app because you changed permissions. I love that. And it doesn't just automatically do it. So we just come back and we click Allow. And now my bot is set up in the Slack API. It's ready to go. So
for a second there, I thought you needed to get a new token.
Nope, it'll use the same tokens, thankfully. Now you can always regenerate them, but it will use the same ones if you change the permissions. So now, the moment of truth, if we come here and I type flip a coin, this is where I'm nervous. The result was tails. And
awesome.
we got a Slack bot working in 30 minutes. Woo! Did it.
Yeah.
So I actually do have enough time now to deploy it to App Platform. So let's talk about deployment. So there are multiple ways we could deploy this bot. Actually, we're going to flip a coin again, see if we get another tails. Oh, no, I want a heads. Come on, give me a heads. Oh, did I upset it? Oh, it's heads. It was a little bit delayed that time, but we got heads, so we're good. Every time I get my bot working, I always want to play with it a little bit. Actually, before I go into deployment, let's answer some questions because I want to make sure that I don't leave anybody behind. So where can I find more about adding extra functionality to that? So Python Slack API. All of the stuff that I've learned, they actually have a great, their documentation is amazing. So I would go, it's api.slack.com, tutorials, tags, Python. And it will tell you all about all of the different things, like using the web API, pagination, rate limiting, all the different APIs, the methods, events types, like all the things you need to be able to use. So for people that are asking about the message block or asking about where they can learn information, I learned all of this from here and a handful of other Slack tutorials, or first Slackbot tutorials that I found on, what's it called? GitHub. That's the thing it's called. Now, if I remember correctly, I'm going to look for it because I think I have one in my GitHub. Do I have it on? Is it a fork? Oh, So I never moved this over. Did I? Oh, look at me. Look at me. I never moved this over to, I need to move it over. So I'll put this in the private chat so y'all can share the two. This is a GitHub repository with the tutorial that is being used, that will be shared with you. This is all the code for it. So if you wanted all the code, it's a little bit more split out into a different class. I have an entire GitHub repository where you can clone this and start going with it. Yes. So
there's a question over here. I think that's for me. Is deployment only for PyCharm and not for PyCharm community? It's only in PyCharm Pro, and Mason is using PyCharm Pro.
It's a great thing. Love it. Cool.
Can we test this locally? Is there any way to test it locally, Mason?
Yes. So my tutorial. So testing the events API is a little bit hard locally. I can just pull up my tutorial real quick and talk about it. So I don't mind just showing it. So what you can do is you can just
zoom in a little bit.
You're right. Thank you. So what you can do is you can just send messages. So you could test to see if your stuff was actually working. You could send it directly to your Slack bot. So the Slack bot would have the permissions, but when it comes to reacting on messages, that actually does, so Slack receives the message inside of the Slack thing, and it forwards like a payload to a web service. That web service has to be somehow it has to be able to receive it. So it has to be publicly available in some sense. But yeah, so if you want to just test the bot sending ability, my tutorial goes a little bit more in depth on testing the bot before you deploy it. Obviously, for time's sake, I wasn't able to get into that today. But yeah, so yeah, those are great questions. I'm loving all the questions here. Let's go ahead and deploy. Repo.new. If you're not used to these .new things, you'll learn that I love them. I just type repo.new and I get a brand new repo in my browser. The .new top level domain is like my favorite thing now. So we're going to call this PyCharm Slackbot, and I'm just going to create a public repository. How am I going to do this now? Because I don't have any. Oh, I know. We'll just do it like that. It works. Cool. Upload an existing file. We're actually going to do this a little bit differently than I'm used to doing it, because my current server that I'm developing on doesn't have my SSH keys, and I don't want to have to jump through that. So I'm just going to use GitHub's drag and drop feature for this. So if I can find my code,
can't you just git push from your local directory to here?
I guess I could. I haven't set any of that up, and like the way I have my two-factor auth is that if it doesn't use a key, it does. Like I can't use HTTPS at all anymore. And since it's only 2 files, and I was teaching a class to marketing people about how to use GitHub. And I was like, how do I make the? I can literally just take these 2 files, do boop. There we go. That's all I need.
That's just cheating, Mason. That's just cheating.
I know it's cheating, but it worked, didn't it? We got what we needed. So now I have my stuff in a GitHub repository. So let's go to my cloud.digitalocean.com.
Hey man, as long as it runs, right?
Yeah. I mean, and obviously I would set it up, if I was doing this on a long term. We're going to use App Platform. So App Platform is basically, it's a PaaS. It's a platform as a service. You can kind of think of like Heroku. Heroku was kind of the one that made this model famous, where I can just upload code and it's going to run. So we're going to say GitHub as our source. We can obviously do GitHub. We can do private chat. But now what we're going to do on this, is this zoomed in enough, Nafil? Is this good?
Yeah, I can see it.
Sweet.
And I have terrible eyes.
Yeah. So we're going to edit our GitHub permissions real quick on this. Basically what I would do, I'm going to pull this over here so everyone doesn't see how my password does. Okay. Why are you here? Okay, you're here. So we come down here and I just type in Slackbot. So PyCharm Slackbot. You could just let it do all repositories. I am very picky, so I only let it have access to a couple. No reason. That's just who I am. So now it comes back here. We click on GitHub again because we had to give it access. Wait on Sammy to swim. So PyCharm Slackbot. We're going to use our main branch. So port is 8080. It's going to run Python app.py. If you look at my tutorial that I sent you, then that will actually talk about using gunicorn and then actually setting up a WSGI, which is probably like if you want it in production, that's the preferred way. But if you're, again, just doing it for development, it's no big deal. We are going to set our environment variables. So our environment variables were Slackbot token, and the value of that was this first one. That's what I call the xbob. It's all, they always start with XOXB, and so I call it xbob. I don't know why. And then our other one was Slack events token. So this is how you would add environment variables. Oh, and we also want to encrypt these. These are private. We don't want anyone being able to see them. Slack events token, encrypt it. So we're going to run a Python web service, HTTP, Slackbot token, Slack events token, Python, HTTP. Every time I make a change to this service and I auto push it, it will redeploy. That was an option that we had at the very beginning that I didn't talk about. It was in the very beginning, but it's like auto deploy on changes. So you could use this for development now and just wait for the deployment to happen. It's a little bit slower because you're obviously waiting on a deployment to happen versus doing it locally. But since you do need external facing for this, it could be an option.
So I do have a question here.
Yeah, what's up?
Just one question. So if you wanted to directly push your application to DigitalOcean itself, can you do that? Or is it
No,
always through GitLab or GitHub?
it's always through a third party. We
Okay.
do not have a code repository. Now, you
Okay.
could build your own Docker container, upload the Docker container to DigitalOcean's container registry, and then deploy the
Okay.
container here. So you could do that. That is one, or Docker Hub. We do have integration with Docker Hub as well, but we
Awesome.
do not have our own code registry. So our basic plan starts at $5 a month. It gives you 512 megabytes of RAM, 1 vCPU. If you're running a teeny tiny application like this and it's for like you and your friend, it's more than enough. It's not going to need that much. But yeah, then we go ahead and we just click launch basic app. And now I will take this as a time to take questions, because it does take a little bit of time, especially on the first deployment, when it has to pull it. Like we can't take advantage of any Docker caching because it's our first deployment, because we haven't had, like, because basically what this is doing is it uses what are known as build packs, CNCF build packs, and it detects that it's a Python image and it builds it in the background for us. So because we don't have any of those images or those layers cached yet, because it's our first build, this might take anywhere from hopefully no more than 5 minutes to build.
So essentially, is it taking your code, containerizing it, and then running it?
It's taking your code, containerizing it, uploading it to our container registry, and then deploying that container via the, and we've actually talked very publicly about this. This is all built on Kubernetes and like a whole bunch of CNCF tools. So that's what it's doing. Is there's what's known as a general population Kubernetes cluster that we use certain tools for isolation to make sure that you don't bounce all over each other and pollute each other's space. But yeah, and we could even view the logs as it's happening. So if we want to watch the logs to at least tell us, hey, what's happening, we're uploading the Docker image to container registry. So we have updated it. Yay. We're at Python 3.9.4. I need to update the docs for that. I know the person who's in charge of this, and I bug them relentlessly to make sure that they put the Python version that I want. So we are running one of the latest versions of Python here.
Persistence is key, my friend.
It works really well.
It works. Just be a really annoying nagger.
Yeah. So, and then we get all of this. And now it's going to upload to the container registry. This usually is the longest step, is the container registry upload. But yeah, so the way that this detects is you have to have that requirements.txt. So the build packs are detect either a requirements.txt or a pipenv file. It detects it, and that's how it determines it's a Python package, and that's how it knows this is what we need to do. So that's why at the very beginning, not only was I developing locally, but that's why I made sure to grab my requirements, because I knew if we got here, we were going to need it.
Just a side note, because this runs on containers, if you don't like pipenv, you can use Poetry or whatever you like, as long as you give it a container image or a Docker file. Is that yes. correct?
As long as if you providing your own container image, you can provide anything. If you want to take advantage of our build packs, it either has to be a requirements.txt or a pipenv.
So what if you just gave the app platform a Docker file? Could it just take that and build it as well?
Yes, it can. So if you have a GitHub repository that has a Docker file in it, it will build the Docker file and do that. So that's another option. So there's a lot of options here. So we're giving it requirements.txt and letting it build its own image, giving it a Docker file, and then it will just build your Docker file and upload it. And then there's also creating your Docker file, pushing to DigitalOcean's container registry, which while we wait, I might as well just show you like what it is, because like I said, it does take a little bit of time sometimes. It's also getting it does a lot of stuff. Like you have Cloudflare protection, like you have DDoS protection. While you're doing this, you're getting automatic host name and SSL. And so it's doing a lot of stuff in the back end. So yeah, DigitalOcean has a container registry that as you can see, I built a Fortran Docker image, because why not? Yeah, I got Fortran running on that platform.
Wow, you're getting creative at this point.
I am. Every now and then I get a little bit bored, and I'm like, what can we do now? So I have a Fortran one, I have a Perl one, and I have a COBOL one running on app platform, which is basically, it's just a Docker image. I use Flask in the front end to basically exec the binaries is all it really does. But it does build, compile, create a Docker image, and then upload it and do it. So you could upload to container registry. And when you've done that, which we actually could probably do with this, if I wanted to show you, it works a lot faster when you do container registry. So if I were to create another app, we're at 67%, so we're moving. DigitalOcean container registry, Fortran. And it's the same thing. It's just like I don't have any environment variables. There's nothing really special about this. It runs on port 8080. We click next. We're going to call it Fortran, and we're just going to give it a name and go. It does not need $10 a month. And we'll get this one. This one will actually probably finish deploying before I'm done talking about the PyCharm one. Okay, the PyCharm one is done. So now we can make our updates.
So you lost.
I lost, yeah. So if I go to the PyCharm one, okay, we're getting nothing, but let's try Slack events. If we get okay, so these are not the Slack bots we're looking for, so we're good.
Right.
So we take this, and now all we would do is go back to wherever I put it, the Slack one.
I think
Here
it
is.
Yeah, third tab.
Yeah, it's third tab, but I went like, it's this one. Okay, let's just change the event, change this to this URL now. So as you see, it gives you like python-slackbot. It gives you your name, a random hash on digitalocean.app/Slack events. If you wanted to give your own DNS, we 100% support that. But for something like this, where no one's gonna be touching it, like no one's gonna go to myslackbot.com. All I need is it for this one. I would not personally. I wouldn't do it. It's no thing. I did see a chat message in here about like why would we use HTTPS for this? If you don't, all of your Slack messages are coming across the wire unencrypted. So all of your data could be leaked out of your Slack environment. You need to have it encrypted here. So like this is good for testing the first time, but you need to be doing HTTPS, and you need to be doing HTTPS in general. Like everything, all data across the internet should be running across HTTPS and be secure. So someone asked, how did I get to do SSL? If I'm using app platform, it automatically does it for me. Like I don't have to worry about it. Like whenever I click on this app, you can see right here, it's secure. So I did not have to do anything. App platform took care of that for us. If I go back to here, let's flip a coin again, just to make sure that the update worked. And the update did work. The app is running flawlessly again. We've deployed to app platform. My Fortran app is running. It says booting. Hello, this is hello app platform. This is Fortran. How did I get here? I was bored, Nafiel. I was really bored one day. They challenged me to see what I could do with app platform, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I could get Fortran to work. I actually have that code. Have you ever seen any Fortran code?
No. Will my eyes burn?
It's actually not as bad as you think it is. I like it. I think it's actually kind of neat, and I have a soft spot for like old stuff. Okay, it's not in DO.
What's next? You're gonna start a COBOL container as well? I mean,
I have one.
I think.
Yeah, I don't have one. I don't have one built. But I do have a sample Docker Fortran. So this is how you would build it. So there's a Docker file that basically runs. Ooh, that's big. So source apt update, install gfortran, Python 3, Python pip. Then I compile my Fortran files, and then gunicorn just runs the Python app. So a hello world in Python or in Fortran looks something like this, where you just say program hello world, implicit none, print the statement in program, relatively straightforward. And then the app.py literally just does a subprocess.check output and runs my Fortran code for me.
So basically you're cheating.
Little bit, yeah. But there is Fortran running in a Docker container. Fortran doesn't have any sort of like, when was the last time you're like, yo, I should use that Fortran web framework? Doesn't exist. Totally.
At least Perl has the answer.
Yeah. My Perl one, I think I just used. Now you're making me go down the rabbit hole here. The good thing is we're done, so we can talk about this. I have a Perl one. What did I do for Perl? I used FastCGI. I just used Nginx and FastCGI. I didn't even bother with a Perl framework. So my index.pl just prints the content type and then the hello world in CGI. And then I have a vhost config that sets up a FastCGI pass.
Mason, somebody just called you a grandpa in chat. I just wanted you to know that.
This is very old tech, okay? This is very old tech. For someone my age, like, it's really odd that I'm even excited by this stuff. Okay, so we have any... Yeah, I'm pretty much done. But yeah, let's go ahead and check the questions real quick. We'll go back to have the PyCharm Slack code sit here. That way. Okay, so someone is saying, I'm getting type error descriptor encode for str objects does not apply to. Unfortunately, I have to be able to see your code for that, but
You guys have a Discord channel, right? Why don't you just tell them to join?
We don't have one actually. Like we're working
you
on
don't?
one.
Okay, join the Python Discord channel.
Yeah, I'm in the Python Discord channel, so you can at me if you need to.
Yeah,
but yeah,
just bother him, annoy him.
Yeah, bother me. It's fine. I'm also on Twitter at Mason Egger. So like my first name, last name. So you can always follow me on Twitter. But yeah, that's all I have for today. We got it done in under an hour, which is surprising to me. I never know how long my talks go. It depends on how many rabbit holes I fall down. So
me neither. But I think this could have taken forever if we really went down Fortran for good. Anyways,
we could have.
All right, Maestro, my slides. Thank you. So, folks, if you want to learn more about PyCharm, head over to our website. You can always follow us on Twitter. This recording will be available on our YouTube channel, and hopefully a follow-up blog post will also be coming. And yeah, thanks for joining us. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun in this. And thank you, Mason. Like you're a total whiz at this, man. Like really, I didn't have to do anything.
It's great. It's great. It's great getting to hang out with you again, and I look forward to maybe doing some more in the future. It's a lot of fun to hang out with you.
Absolutely. Mi casa es tu casa, amigo.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
Also, one last thing. I just want you all to know this. Mason is from Texas. He's a Texan who didn't say that he's from Texas, so I just want everybody to know that.
Well, if you look back here, like you can see the Texas on my wall. That's actually a map of all of the waterways in Texas. I like to kayak a lot. My boss got me for that for Christmas. It's a hydrological map of Texas. So it is there. It's a subtle. It's like a little Easter egg.
All right, then, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It was a lot of fun, and I'll be making more Slackbots.
Awesome. See y'all later.
See y'all. Bye.
Yay.